Hi, my name's Steve Austin from Today is the Day, and I'm blowing it up with the Mighty Z on Metal Gods Radio.
Metal Gods!
This is Zoran Theodorovich with Metal Gods Radio. We have Steve from Today is the Day on the phone, calling from Maine. Is that right?
That's right. How you doing there, Zoran?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good, man. I'm kind of kicking back here with my dog, Abby, and staring out the window, getting to talk to some different friends from around the country about music, and just home and trying to work on a lot of music right now.
That's awesome. Now, how did you first get into music? Who or what turned you on to heavy metal?
I was living out in the country down in Tennessee, and when I was about 13 years old, I for the first time, a friend of mine down the road, he showed me AC/DC, Back in Black, and then he picked up a guitar and started playing to it, and then right then, both the experience of hearing hard rock or heavy metal for the first moment, and then seeing my friend playing guitar, it made me go hey, maybe I could do that. and so I right after that got I'd been playing acoustic guitar and stuff like that, and my dad got me an electric I think an Electro Les Paul, and then the next probably big motivating moment was Judas Priest came to Nashville on their Screaming for Vengeance tour, and me and my buddy Jim Willoughby, we went down to the concert and saw them play. And back then when a band like Judas Priest would play, they would have all 26 stacks plugged in on stage, and it was a pretty insane, epic moment. It was the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I think right after doing that and getting started playing, that's when I realized this was my calling.
Did you get a chance to check out the opening band, or were you in the parking lot getting hammered?
I did. I want to say that at that concert, you may not remember this guy, but there was this guy that he used to be a lot like Jimi Hendrix. His name was John Butcher Axis, and he opened for Judas Priest, and it was like seeing a modern day Jimi Hendrix play guitar and stuff. But the main moment from that I remember that was really cool was when they opened the doors. Back then, seating was general admission for everything, and so the minute they opened the doors, I went running as fast as I could with my buddy, and we ran right up to the front edge of the stage, which, because we were little guys, it was about at the top of our head, probably about 5 feet tall, and it was just such a trip because there was no barricade, there was no crazy security in front of the stage, and so literally when Judas Priest was playing, me and Jim would put our hands on the stage, and we could feel the power and volume of all those Marshall stacks turned up loud as hell, and it was just really cool because back then you could interact with even a big concert like that a lot more than you can now.
What is the first music you bought with your own money, and what is your most prized music collectible?
Gee, I'd say my most prized music collectible is I have a box set of Miles Davis, Bitches Brew, and I really, really love that box set. It came with a book and another book that's full of photographs, and then it's got several different LPs. It's got outtakes and different things from the Bitches Brew sessions, and and as far as first records that I bought with my money, that's kind of a funny story because back then we used to get these things from Columbia Record House where they would mail it to your house and it'd say for 1 penny you can get 12 albums or 20 albums, something crazy. And this was right after that dude played AC/DC Back in Black in front of me. And so I started learning about all these bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Blue Oyster Cult. And, I wanted to hear what these bands sounded like because I lived out in the country in Tennessee. So I took my 1 penny and I sent it to Columbia House. And one day, a big, huge box of vinyl albums showed up at my house. And it was like Christmas. I was like, oh my God, I've got close to 20 albums in here. Where do I even start? And so I just began listening to all those records. But then the funny part of the story was about a month later, my parents got a bill from Columbia House for I think it was close to $400. And that was because that gimmick of the 1 penny was that you were supposed to buy just as many albums as you got for the 1 penny, and I did not do that, and so my parents weren't too psyched about me enabling my vinyl collection through this 1 penny deal that you're supposed to buy $400 worth of albums for.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they used to do that all the time. They'd mail these things in your mailbox, and it'd have every cool metal and hard rock album that you can think of. And the gimmick was if you paid 1 penny, then they give you all them albums, but you have to buy the same amount of records at the normal price after that. And being 12 or 13 years old, I didn't really get that part of the concept. All I knew was I give 1 penny and now I get the library of metal sent to my house.
Yeah, I think we were too young to read the fine print.
Yeah, I probably didn't care too much about that fine print because that was right around the time I was discovering girls and metal and guitars, and that was pretty much all I was thinking about.
And how old were you when you got into your first band?
I was about 16 or 17 years old, and I was in high school. And, we had a couple of kids that played in the school band, like the drummer, Jason, played in the school band, and I think one other kid did too. And all of us loved, heavy metal and hard rock. And, I probably liked a few other things that they weren't as much aware of, but our set list was Live Wire by Motley Crue, Electric Eye by Judas Priest, Rainbow in the Dark by Dio, bunch of current metal songs like that were going on at the time and so forth. But I loved all of that. I loved, I saw Motley Crue on Shout at the Devil tour, and it was just more and more just luring me into heavy metal and everything that goes along with it. And
were you pretty popular girl-wise in high school? And did that increase your opportunity to meet girls joining the band?
No, I would say it was already a bad situation with me being a really overweight fat kid that nobody wanted to really hang around. And then the popular music at that time in my school was stuff like Aztec Camera and REM and college radio alternative rock. And if you played or if you were into Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath or stuff like that, then you were considered the stoner crowd of the weirdos that nobody wants to hang around. And so I kind of wound up being in that camp.
Yeah, I remember those days for sure. Now, with the climate of the music industry being driven by online music consumption, does it become more important for artists in 2020 to abandon more traditional avenues of success with music?
I think that the main thing that's come about from the online existence of the way everything is it's good because a lot of people can discover and find out about a lot of different musics that, for me, when I was a kid, like when I wanted to listen to Dio, Holy Diver, I had to order that at a record store that was about 30 minutes away from my house. And then it took like a week for that to come in. And now with Spotify, Pandora, all the different streaming sites, iMusic, it's like if you think of something, you can immediately access it and check it out. Now, going hand in hand with that, though, it's also created a lot of mediocrity in music because there's so much accessibility to music that I think a lot of it that gets churned out is kind of crappy in a lot of ways in modern day times right now. But I think that, you know, the main thing that's happened out of all of it, I think, is not so much about the music delivery service, but it's the communication with fans. It's like I speak with fans of Today is the Day from all over the world that'll write me through Facebook Messenger or through the website of the band or my studio. And, you know, we're able to connect with each other in a lot more personal way than we would have back in the day when it was like writing letters and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, the music is, I think nowadays, more about a live experience as far as for a person and an artist in a band, because it's like, you know, you can stream the music on your phone, you can listen to it in your car, you can probably even do all those things and do that totally for free. But the one thing that still isn't captured by a video camera or a microphone is the electricity of a live show. And so I think in a lot of ways, the digital age has brought about the importance of live music and going out to go see it.
And do you have any advice for artists looking to have a career in music in this digital age?
I would say that the number one thing that you need to do is just to realize that you are there to create brand new things. You are there to make music that rocks you, music that moves you, music that makes you think. And it's like, you know, when you're given that platform or soapbox to stand on to do something, it's, you know, you need to understand that, you know, it's not all about making money. It's not all about making money from like the records that you sell or the records that a record company sells of yours. The true reward in doing all this is being able to create something and make something that moves somebody and not temporarily move them, something that they will keep your record for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, and they'll keep your hooded sweatshirt or your T-shirt or your band for lifelong. And I feel like that for me, the success out of playing music, it's not about how many downloads we get or how many streams or, you know, how many units we move or this and that. It's like all that stuff is just metrics of something that somebody can count. What really counts and what really matters is the music that you make and how it affects other people. And if you're doing it right, hopefully you're giving people something that they wish that they had, but they didn't know what it was.
Most people's influences stop at a certain age in their lives. I was watching the ZZ Top documentary on Netflix last night, and I believe it was a singer said that during a 3-year break, he got to experience punk rock, and he was influenced by punk rock into doing something new, stepping outside of the box, playing synthesizers and so forth, which was, forbidden probably for a kind of music they were doing. Would you say that's the same for you? Did you your influences stopped at maybe Motley Crue and Judas Priest, or has there been, throughout the course of your career, is there something else that has come along?
Throughout the years, I'm always inspired by different things that just happen to pop up, and I think I am because I keep an open mind. It's like, you'll come across a band or a music, and you'll see like different things about that band or music that show you something different or something new that you never thought about before. And it's not so much about the notes and like the words and stuff like that people are saying. A lot of times it can be like the philosophy of a band. Like, for instance, like the band King Crimson. It's like you can listen to King Crimson and you go, wow, like this is a powerful song or that's a powerful song or whatever, But what you really, for me, like I take away from it is you take away philosophy of it, which is like a visionary philosophy of creating complex music that challenges like the levels of playing that can be done musicianship wise, or whether it's challenges like your feelings about like what makes like a good rock song. It's like all those different types of philosophies are a lot of things that you can draw from, and you never know where the next thing is that you're going to see or feel and draw inspiration from it. And that goes for not only like music, but like I get inspired by film a lot. The movies of Stanley Kubrick are mind blowing to me, and same thing with like David Lynch. Like, I look at films made by filmmakers like this, and the parallels that can be drawn to music are immediate because you can see that, like, for instance, like a movie like Memento, which was by Chris. Can't think of the last name right now, but Memento is like this film where it's put backwards order of like the way that the film is presented to you. And, once you watch that film and experience it, you start seeing like creative ways that you can play with different things, like that things don't always have to be in sequential order. They can be in random order. They could be in backwards order, and it still tell the story. So I think any good artist, if they keep their mind open and their heart open and they're willing to understand that life is a learning experience, they can pick up influences throughout their whole life if they're willing to keep an open mind and try new things.
From amphetamine reptile to relapse, what kind of positive and negative guidance have you received over the years?
Positive and negative what?
Guidance.
Guidance?
Yes.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it guidance, but like, I think everything in life is like instinctual about like what you want to do, and you get a feeling about what is the right direction to go. And when I first made the demo tape of How to Win Friends and Influence People for Today is the Day, and we sent it out, we sent it out just like any other kids would, which would be like, okay, so who's our favorite labels? Well, we like Amphetamine Reptile, we like Earache, we like TBT with Nine Inch Nails, Pretty Eight Machine, we like, Matador, all these different record labels, and they were pretty different record labels like Combat Records and Relativity Records. Earache were all the like metal ones, or death metal, extreme metal, and then the other ones I mentioned were more like noise rock and alternative music. And so, like, you know, each one of those steps along the way, like when we got on Amphetamine Reptile Records, the first thing that I told the dude that owned the label, who is now like a lifelong friend of mine, Tom Hazelmeyer, was, and I had no ground to stand on. I was talking on a payphone from a little gas station, but I basically just said, after I introduced myself, you know, I make up the music I make up, and the graphics I make up, and the lyrics I make up, and we're not willing to compromise or change them for anyone or anything. If you can deal with that, then we can talk and maybe we can work together. And if you can't deal with that, then we should end the phone call now. And it's like, you know, Tom basically said back to me, I don't give a fuck what you make as long as you make it and you do it good. So be free, go do whatever you want to do and give me the record, and then that's what we're putting out. And I said, well, as that's the way it's going to be, then I can deal with that, and that sounds pretty good. So that was how we were able to make Supernova, Willpower, and Self-Titled, you know. And then at whatever point, you know, just like anything, when you're in the game long enough, you know, different things change. And you know, the music scene around the world was changing, and I think that, you know, the whole world kind of like woke up out of this drug-fueled, crazy early 90s madness that involved Nirvana and grunge bands and noise bands, to where I think people, you know, kind of gravitated towards things that are a little bit heavier and scarier than what was going on before. And I myself did exactly the same thing, probably sometime around 1997, when nobody was really listening at that time to like thrash metal and like Slayer records and stuff like that, and Morbid Angel and stuff. I got bored. I started listening to those records again and checking them out, and up along came this record label that was a new label called Relapse Records, and they only had like so many bands on it that you knew. Like, I think at that time they had just signed Neurosis, and that was one of the only ones that I really knew. And so we were kind of offered to be a part of this new thing that's putting out extreme music. And then from there, I ended up making Temple of the Morning Star, In the Eyes of God, Sadness Will Prevail, Kiss the Pig, Live Till Die. And it, you know, and again, it was all under that condition that as long as I can make what I truly want to make, and the label is not going to mess with it, then we can work together. And I've just been really lucky throughout my life about the different labels that I've been on, that I've been able to get those kinds of terms, because by fighting for that, it's enabled me to make some pretty different metal records that I feel like that nobody else like has ever made.
No Good to Anyone is the new one. It's number 11. Is there a concept that runs throughout it, or is it more of a collection of songs?
I think that there is a constant theme that runs throughout it, and that is one of like, I think it's like facing the human existence and trying to understand like mortality and death and like what it's all about, and pain and suffering. And in it, you know, the character in the album, which is me and my life, it you know, it's to keep that real and to keep that true, you have to bond it with the other emotions in life that you have, which are, you know, loving, caring, tenderness, solemnness, all these other type of feelings, melancholy, that a normal human would have. So it's like No Good to Anyone is kind of like a reality diary of like life that was happening to me during a pretty dark time, and then when you put it all together, it almost makes like some kind of like trip or wild ride, or like a movie that takes you on like a type of trip and a journey.
The new album appears to be performing quite well on the metal radio charts. I know that we played it here on MetalgodZradiO. How big of it is a surprise to see you up there with Ozzy Osbourne and Ice-T?
You know what? I think it's the greatest thing in the world, and the reason why is because so many times that you see these charts and so forth, you can totally understand why so-and-so is right there, or, Marilyn Manson, number 4, and Metallica, number 2, and, this, and those are all music that have a tremendous amount of money and marketing behind them, and obviously good music that they make as well. But I think in 2020, what No Good to Anyone is doing right now is rewriting the landscape of what are the possibilities of music. And it's because the record is not some super accessible mainstream device. It's definitely more like a record like Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, or something that's more prog rock and out there and underground. And so when I look at a chart and I see my band at number 5 on the radio chart, and then I look at the other bands that are around it, I just think that this is a massive victory for underground music, for real heavy metal music, and it's one that the people can hold on to and be proud of, because maybe they're that freak like me that, has loved Today's the Day and cared about it for so long and wished that maybe more people could find out about it. But because it's so extreme and so crazy, it's been hard for that to ever happen. And now here we are in 2020, and this stuff is crazy and different and out there, but yet people are responding to it. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think it says something about the listeners of music and how far they've evolved and how far they've come. And, and I just hope that it continues keeping going in that direction, because if it does, then that means that everybody will have an ability to hear a lot of brand new things that aren't retro or going back in time trying to relive some experience, but like brand new bands, brand new music that's got something to say.
You were on tour with Childbite when it all went to hell.
Yes, I was.
How are you coping in this current environment? Well, the current environment that we're in is a worldwide pandemic. Is that right?
Yeah. I think you got to just keep it all balanced, and balanced, what I mean by that is it's easy to lose our heads in a moment like this right now. And the best thing that you can do is to be prepared for whatever it is that's going on. So, I already had a leg up on that stuff because of some life choices I made. Number one, I live in a remote area way up northeast, about an hour away from Canada, where there's not that many people. So my house and where it's positioned at, we have a propane gas stove. We heat the house with a wood stove, so we have wood in our barn. And then, with food and so forth, I go deer hunting, and I got lucky this year for the first time in a long time. And I shot a monster buck that was like 250-something pounds. So I've got like 150 pounds of deer meat in my fridge. So all the life-sustaining stuff that can come from having a worldwide pandemic, I luckily, as a survivalist, already had all that stuff in place, and so we can't run out of food, really. It would take a long time. We can't really, if the electricity went off, that doesn't matter either, because our stove is propane and our heat is wood. And so, you know, when this all like came down, and it's like, okay, we're going to have to pause tour here for a minute, and you're going to go back home. The first thing I had on my mind was I want to get back home and take care of my wife and kids. And I say kids, they're like 16 and 18 years old, but still, I wanted to be there for them and get back home and make sure that everything's in order for them. And, you know, but it's like, at the same time, it's like, you know, you can't stop life fully in and of itself just because of something like this going on and being worried out of your mind and freaked out of your mind. Am I worried and freaked out of my mind? Hell yeah, I am. I mean, I definitely, you know, I don't want to die, and I don't want my family to die. And I sure as hell wouldn't want to die by a pesky virus. But at the same time, you know, we're going through something right now that is pretty much, it's seemingly never happened before, but then really it has. But we're in an internet age where news and information is on overload all the time. And that overload can create a lot of different environments for people. Some people don't take well to bad news, and some people don't take well to threats or worrying about stuff. And so, you know, I feel like everybody's just pretty much trying to make it through right now. It's like it's been financially crushing for everybody. It was financially crushing for me about coming home from this thing. But, you know, the whole point of living is to be alive, to live, to create, to love, to do things. And I just figure, hey, I'm going to hunker down here at my pad. I've got my recording studio. I'm going to make songs up. I'm going to write a new Today is the Day album. Once I get through doing that, I'm going to record a outlaw country kind of album that kind of sounds like old Hank Williams Sr. or Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. And I hope that if I keep myself busy enough like that, that time will just go by, and then a couple months from now, we'll all wake up and go, oh, it looks like this is under control. Like, let's get back to, like, what we were doing before, you know. So I just send out to your listeners a message of hope is don't let yourself get too dragged down in the mud with all this stuff. And the best thing that you can do is to acknowledge the things that you do have that are good in your life, love them, care about them, and then all your hopes and dreams, keep working on them and doing it right now. You don't have to go out and play a show to make your hopes and dreams work out. Like, go in your bedroom, get your guitar out, write a song, write the most important song that you've ever written in your life right now. You know, there's nothing